Welcome to the GOTO Podcast. Each episode covers the brightest and boldest ideas from the world's leading experts in software development. Tune in for practical lessons, compelling theories, and plenty of inspiration. GOTO gathers the brightest minds in the software community to help developers tackle projects today, plan for tomorrow, and create a better future. Stay up to date with the latest in tech through GOTO's top-rated events held online and in person in cities like Amsterdam, London, Copenhagen, and Chicago, and by subscribing to the GOTO Conference's YouTube channel, where you can find thousands more high-quality dev talks. Learn more at gotopia.tech.
Hello, welcome. My name is Naomi Ceder. I'm a past chair of the Python Software Foundation and author of a Python book. And I'm here today to talk to Fabrizio Romano, who is the author of Learn Python Programming from Pact Publishing. So, Fab, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. And hello. Yeah, I guess very briefly, I've been using Python for almost 2 decades now. About 10 years ago, I was asked to write a book, which is why we're here now. I've also had the pleasure to work with you, Naomi, in the past, about 10 years ago. That was fun. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, great. And in terms of your experience as a person working with Python, maybe just sort of throw in how long you've been working with Python and doing things like that.
I've been using it since, I think, 2006, 2007, something like that. And professionally since 2009. So it's been 15 plus years with Python. Before that, I was programming with other languages. I've been a professional software developer for more than 30 years now. At the moment, I work for a company called Sohonet, and I still do some bits and pieces of coding, but I mostly manage the team, the product team there, which is split in 4 sub-teams. Yeah, I've been doing that for 3 years. So yeah, I have fun with code and people at the moment.
Okay. Well, I mean, you mentioned that we worked together about 10 years ago, and I thought maybe we should mention that when you were approached about writing this book, we talked it over, you and I.
Yes.
And I've seen you then go on, and now this is the 4th edition. So what have you gained? Has your perspective changed? Have you learned anything? What has this process of being a book author for a long time meant to you?
Well, first of all, I need to thank you for the advice you gave me that day. I remember it very clearly. You said, do it for the experience. And I think it was the best advice. I came to you right before I was contacted by Pact. I got a message on LinkedIn while at work. And it's been an interesting journey. It's been, I guess for me, I've learned a lot about myself by writing the book. Because every edition has its own challenges. But the first one is like, can I make it? Can I do it? Can I write a book? It's not as easy as it seems, especially if you really want to really like do a good job. But it's also been fun, painful at times, a lot of effort, as I'm sure you know, goes into it. But yeah, like you learn a lot about yourself because it's quite a challenge to write a book.
That it is. And I think the other thing I told you that day is that you would never get rich writing a tech book. And I
yes,
must think that was also correct.
Yeah, that was also true.
But it is true. I think one thing you gain is the knowledge, reinforcement, confidence, whatever you might want to call it, that you can do a big project over a certain period of time. I've never managed to get through one in less than a year's worth of work, something like that. And but yeah, if you can do that, you figure, you can tackle almost any project because you've done something like that requires a lot of self-discipline and commitment to make it through.
Yeah, I remember the first edition was about 9 months worth of work, and it was 40 hours a week on top of the other work that I had. So yeah, It's a lot of work, and it's really nice though when you've done it to get the feedback from the people who read the book and they thank you because they liked it and or offer any kind of feedback. So it's quite rewarding, I would say, as a thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. I particularly like the ones where they will like, oh, this was the first thing I read that really got me started in Python, and so I owe you this phase of my career, or something like that. That's very,
Yes.
very
Yes,
gratifying.
indeed. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about was in some comments to me, and in terms of changes for this fourth edition now, you mentioned that things have been changed and you didn't dwell specifically on scripts, but instead you had added a chapter on command line applications. So I thought it would be interesting to get kind of your reactions or feelings about, like, well, what's a script? What's a command line application? But do you see a distinction? What's your thinking about that whole thing?
Sure. Well, first of all, with each edition, like the first book was half theory and half practical projects. And then each edition has lopsided a little bit that line towards having more theory and fewer projects. And of course, the projects have gone through a little bit of a transformation over time. We had a spectacular failure of adding an async IO chapter in the second edition, which was way too advanced for the audience. So that's gone. And another chapter that in the last edition we decided to remove was something that I thought would make sense in the first edition, to have a chapter about GUIs and scripts. And but at the moment, I think the vast majority of the work that we do, maybe with the exception of developers, but a normal person on a computer, you do most of the stuff in your browser. I think, you want to make the book as appealing to as many people as possible. And therefore we thought maybe instead of pitching this GUI thing, maybe it's better to target developers and what they do on a daily basis. And what we do is scripts and CLIs, as well as applications and programs and stuff. So the chapter with the GUI was to reduce the amount of space was a script, and then the equivalent in a GUI application. So we decided to remove that and instead focus on CLI. And basically, to me, I still use both because to me they serve two different purposes. The script is like a module or like a bunch of Python code that sometimes is a one-off thing that takes you from here to here and you never have to use it again. Like if you trigger a migration in a database or something, normally it's not well written or tested, a lot of hard-coded stuff. As long as it does its job, you're happy. Whereas to me, a CLI is an interface to a bigger world, a more complex application that, like, think, for example, UV or Git or whatever tool we use in our consoles. And it's more like a grown-up version of a script, basically, because you get the argument parsing is done professionally. It's got some, if you pass the help flag, you get some information about the tools that you're about to use. There's whole frameworks like ArcParse or Typer that you can use to produce beautiful CLIs. And they encapsulate maybe a bit more than what a script can do. So the way I see them is a script is a one-off thing that you might use repeatedly or maybe once and that's it. Whereas a CLI application is something you want to use. And sometimes you use it to simplify your life because maybe you need to upload something very quickly and with some whatever code. So you write your own piece of reusable interface that you then can use from your console.
Yeah, I think you kind of put your finger on two things that I would say. One of which is the frequency. How often are you going to be using exactly that code? And the other one is then the amount of complexity you need to hide and I guess also manipulate a little bit. So yeah. Those are a couple of things that I was thinking of as well. I mean, I think it's a good distinction. I also think that other than a few basics, people don't need a whole lot of instruction on how to create scripts because it's kind of a natural thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty close from doing it in the Python shell to then putting it in a file and just doing it that way. So
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. You sort of moved GUIs, and we're talking about the browser and things like that. I mean, is that how you see things going in the future? Is that will be what? I don't know. What do you see us doing with sort of desktop apps in the future, if anything?
I think there's always going to be a place for desktop applications, because when you're browser based, you are subject to some limitations that come from the fact that the browser operates in a sandbox, and whereas a desktop application can have a whole set of more advanced permissions when you use it in your system. So I think there's a situation in which a desktop application maybe is better instead of a browser-based application. And by browser-based application, I also mean things like an app that would run in Electron or something like that. But of course, it depends what you need. Like, if you build a proper desktop application, then you have to create the builds for the various processors, the various systems, Windows, Linux, the Mac. Whereas if you build something that works in a browser or in something like a browser, it's probably much more easy to port on any system. And so there's like two use cases. I do think that most of what we do today, from documents in Google Docs to searching using AI in a chat or whatever, happens via a browser. So it felt that a chapter on GUI was a little bit outdated, and the real estate in a book is very precious. So yeah. So the reason why we had the scripts, for example, is because that was the excuse to explain if name equals main. So we salvaged that. We explained it somewhere else, and we had a proper chapter in this about an application like that. So that was kind of the reason. But I do think that we're gonna have both of them, like proper desktop application and browser-based application going forward. But I also think that as a Python developer, probably the majority of developers would do something in a browser rather than a proper desktop application. I think there's less market for them. So you want your book to be relevant to as many people as possible then.
Well, and you also mentioned that in the third edition, you brought on board a co-author who worked a lot on the command line interface chapter and things like that. So how was that, adding a collaborator after a couple of editions? How did that go for you?
It was great. I was building my Reiki school between the second and third edition. So when Pact asked me to write the third edition, I didn't feel that I had all the time to properly commit to the project. And I thought, who would be a good addition to this project? So with the people in my team, some people have been reviewers, because I try to get everybody engaged, that they have like an experience of that sort. And one of my colleagues is Heinrich Kruger, who I asked if he wanted to join, and he said yes. And he brought a lot to the book. First of all, he's an exceptional developer. So there was a certain type of rigor that he brought that maybe the book was a little bit lacking before. And also he brought his perspective on things, how to explain this or that. So we reworked some of the previous bits and pieces in other chapters to maybe find better ways to explain things. And of course, he wrote entirely the CLI application and the Python packaging chapters on his own. Because what we did, we reworked the previous edition of the book together, and then we had, 4 new chapters. So I wrote 2 and he wrote the other 2.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. In a way, you sort of get something that's maybe, a supercharged editor in a sense. You have somebody looking at your stuff and giving feedback and things like that. So who's also kind of an owner of it rather than just an outsider. I think that could be cool.
Yeah. And Heinrich has this ability. I think in his previous incarnation, he was 3 elephants, because he can remember, no, we've explained this bit in chapter 2 in this little paragraph. And so in chapter 12, we don't need to repeat this, which I could never do. I had to reread my own book a million times when I was alone. And then when he signed up, he has this kind of memory, and it's impressive. So it's the list of improvements that he brought to the book. It's quite long, I would say.
That's a great talent. I know people sometimes quote something from my book to me, and I go, "Oh, did I say that?"
Me too.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good talent. I think something else that we wanted to talk about a little bit, which, I mean, we've both been using Python for a very long time, so we've had to kind of adapt to this, is the rise of typing in Python, and people have many different opinions about it. I know I sometimes have contradictory opinions about it at the same time. So what is your evolution on typing in Python?
There was definitely an evolution, because when it first came out, I was like, why are you ruining my language?
Yeah, me too.
Yes. I think most of us had this reaction, because one of the things that I was attracted of Python that attracted me in the beginning was how simple it was to read it, how uncluttered it was to read a piece of code. And then all of a sudden you've got this new syntax that complicates function signatures and stuff. And it's like, I don't like it. But then over time, I think it became more and more powerful and more integrated with the language. And I started to see benefits. For example, when you write the greeting function with a name, if you specify that is a string, then inside the function, when you go name dot, your editor, if it is a modern IDE, will show you a list of methods that belong to a string. So that was really good to have, as well as have some clarity when you read a function, and you don't have to go to the test to understand what's the shape and form of a certain parameter. And eventually, I think I got used to it. And I think it's because of type hints that we have framework like Typer and FastAPI that are founded on type inference, basically, to do their job, which I really like. So yes, I think it can get complicated. The syntax is not something that I enjoy looking at, but I think that the trade-off is, at the end of the day, it's worth having it because of the benefits that you reap when you use it properly.
It's something like the script and command line application debate. Frequency and complexity are a couple of things that I think enter into this. I really like my friend Luciano Hamayo's phrase, progressive typing. Only use as much of it as you need. But, I know Guido van Rossum himself, sort of one of his motivations for adding typing was to make the sort of IDE features you were talking about more accessible, more reliable. So, I guess it's been a good thing. Yeah.
Yes. It took a while, though. I have to say, it's probably the most controversial feature of Python to me in the last 10 years, that it was the hardest one to digest.
Yeah, I agree. And I still sometimes find typing can add more information as you read the code, so that's good. But it can also add kind of cognitive overhead, which makes it harder to hold everything in your place. So it's definitely a balance.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I mean, Python has always been a language for responsible adults, right? So I think typing as well, and the way you use it has to follow the same kind of guidelines. If you're building a library for someone else, probably you want to type your code. You want to add type hints and all that. But if it turns out that your code is dynamic or it gets too complicated, and there's no really good reason for doing so, I think better keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other chapters you added, and this was one that you particularly added as sort of your passion project, was the chapter on coding challenges.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. I am not aware of another Python book or whatever that really puts coding challenges in that kind of position. So I guess my first question is, did you get any pushback as you were trying to sell this idea? I just kind of imagine a discussion with my publishers and how that would go. So I'm just wondering if you got any resistance at all, people saying, oh, really? Or maybe not. I don't know. How was that?
I did not get any pushback on that. This was a under the shower aha moment. I was like, maybe I can add this. And the reason is maybe I sold it well, but there's actually more than one purpose. One is that we've been through a lot of theory in the book, and then we have looked at how to use this and that framework to do some stuff. But it's nice to have a few pages to bring it all together and kind of like try to understand, oh, this is how you would write an algorithm with Python, and this is how you would use the methods from the strings and then turn that into integers and like combine things together. Another reason for which I wanted to add such a chapter is because for me, one of the dangers of AI is that people kind of like fall out of love with the code. And so when you get a fun problem to work on, then you have that motivation to write it yourself. And this is a really good way to keep yourself fit in the way you know algorithms, in the way you know the language, because it's fun. So you wouldn't use hopefully tools to solve a problem for fun. It's something that you want to do yourself. And I've always found that activity very beneficial for me to brush up on algorithms and all that, and as well enjoy my free time. So it was a way to inspire maybe hopefully younger generation to say, hey, there's also this aspect of programming. And that actually can lead to getting a job in a cool company sometimes that you do for fun, and you learn a lot, and you will keep your mind fit, and you will learn really well your language, because in those problems, there's always the trick of one off in indexes or like the little bit. So it also helps developing debugging skills, and the benefits are quite a lot, I think.
Have you gotten positive reaction from this? Have you heard anything back? That's good.
Yeah, I've got a few readers saying that they really enjoyed the chapter. They really enjoyed the idea. They would check out the Advent of Code website because they didn't know about. I used to be a player on maybe 20, 30 of those websites, like kind of like Lead Code. And now I don't have the time, but Advent of Code is the one that I do every year. And it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, it was successful for I'm very happy about it. Yeah.
Well, and those challenges are playing an increasing role in recruitment, or I should say, in screening potential engineer employees too.
Yeah. So it's fun and it's educative, I think.
Oh, that's good. I mean, maybe this will be the beginning. I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, which is to do with the rise of AI and how that might take away or help diminish people's enjoyment of the code. So maybe we can kind of slide over to that area, because I suppose, like typing, many people have opinions on AI coding. And I think, personally, I think maybe we're still on somewhere in the hype cycle between what it can do and what it can't do, but it's certainly having a huge effect on the industry. You use AI professionally for coding, I gather. So what are your impressions so far? Good, bad, things to worry about?
I think for me, it's a little bit like a knife. A knife is not intrinsically good or bad. It depends. You use it to cut your vegetables. It's a good thing. You bring it to the stadium. Not a good thing. So it's just a tool, right? And for me, AI is a little bit like that. There's definitely an advantage in using AI. For me, for example, last couple of months, I was working on an application that I built for my team, for the internal working on the whole team, so they can collaborate and all that. And it's comprised of the Python backend. There is also React frontend. There is also Docker. There is also a lot of other stuff. So I'm not as competent in all the areas as I am with Python. So having AI there who knows exactly which flag to pass to that instruction to do what you want to do saves you from reading a badly written documentation for 2 hours. So for those things, I think it's amazing. I find it also amazing as a learning tool because instead of having to read many, many pages on the web when you're doing some research, you can just start on an AI chat, and it gives you like a general idea, and then you can branch off from there and seek something a bit more specific. I do not think we are at the point where it will replace people yet. We might get there. I don't know. But going back and forth between the fear of, oh my God, there is this thing now, and try to be optimistic about it, I think I've settled on a position that is, I'm going to learn as much as I can about it, and I'm going to try and stay relevant in any way possible, which I think it's something that every developer has to do. And it will have to be different according to where they are in their career. So seniors are supposed to level up in a certain way. Juniors are supposed to do something else potentially. And I don't have all the answers figured out, I think, because it's very, I don't know, you just go away for a week, you come back and there's like 17 new tools that you can use. And it goes at a speed that is frustratingly fast. You always feel you're catching up. Like 6 months ago, we were all on Copilot. Now we're all on Cursor with Claude Code. And it's like, it's two completely different worlds in terms of how good it is. But yeah, I think the one thing I don't understand is how people can vibe code, because anytime I do something with
I was going to
AI,
ask about that.
yeah. Anytime I do anything with AI, I realize I have to input a lot of my knowledge and experience in guiding it to get what I want. As soon as you get out from the one page, one button thing, then you need to be a developer if you want to get something done properly. And if you manage to get something done properly, if you're not a developer, the moment you start having to maintain that and making it actually robust and stable and scalable and stuff, AI is not there yet. This is my personal opinion, of course, but I do think it's an amazing tool. And I hope that especially the young generations will use it responsibly, which is you need to make sure that you stay fit in your mind, in your knowledge, that you keep learning, you keep making the effort to understand and all that. Otherwise, yes, you're going to be irrelevant in a few years because the tool will know more and will know how to do more. So it's like every tool, we use the car and then we go to the gym to run to stay fit.
Right.
It's just another muscle that we need to keep exercising all the time.
I agree with what you said. I think the thing that worries me is that while you say, and I agree, that it is not at the point of replacing people, I think upper managers are seeing it quite differently, and they are thinking that AI can replace juniors. And I think this is the thing that is maybe most concerning, is that if you fire all of the juniors in favor of AI, well, maybe AI produces almost as good a code as a junior, but you're not creating people that then have, as you alluded to earlier, the debugging knowledge and the maintenance knowledge of security, robustness, all of those things, because well, AI is trained on the mass of code, and we both know that the world contains a lot of bad code. So.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. And I can spot the difference when I use AI on Python and front-end and stuff. I can see it performs very differently. But I agree totally with you. I think removing juniors is a very myopic move, because in 10 years, the seniors that you are going to need to drive all those agents and all those things that you do are the juniors today. So we have to nurture this generation of people and get them to have that experience and that mileage that will lead to being able to understand that code and understand the applications and architectures and all that, which you can't do if you don't spend years struggling.
Right. Well, and I need to say too, and this is something that I've known, but of course the rest of the world probably doesn't, is that you have always been very dedicated to nurturing a team and to taking care of the people that you work with. It was one of the things that I enjoyed, that impressed me in working with you. So,
well, thank you so much.
And I think that comes through in the book as well, the way you've thought about the choices. Your edition of the coding challenges, all of these things are meant to have concern for the humans writing the code more than just the code per se.
Yes, indeed. I think there's no better way to spend our time to just benefit other people. and leave something with them. For me, I always say to the people I manage that when we will part ways, because I leave or they leave the company, I just want them to know that, oh, Fab taught me this. Even if it is just a small thing, just to leave something with everybody I meet. That is great satisfaction when I know that that's the case. And
I think with that and with your book, I think you've done that.
Thank you so much.
Do you have anything else that you want to bring up that we haven't hit so far? I think we're about out of time.
Just to say thank you, because you've been that for me 10 years ago, a source of inspiration and fun and learning other ways to deal with people and teams and code and growing up and all that. So I owe a lot to you as well. So just say thank you as well for your time today for this interview.
It's been a pleasure. Okay, well, I think that does it for this one then. Thanks, Fab.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the GoTo podcast. Head over to gotopia.tech to discover lots more content from the brightest minds in software development.